So perfectionists are known for being driven, disciplined, and super ambitious. But I ask you, at what cost? Today, I want to unpack when motivation turns into self-punishment and how you can find the balance between the two. I'm Kim Gross, and I'm the host of Masks Off for People Pleasers and Perfectionists. And today, as I said, I want to talk about finding or exploring the fine line between having healthy motivation and this perfectionistic pressure that we can often put on ourselves. This is coming out on Christmas Day. It's Christmas Day as you're listening to this. And it's often a time when people will create vision boards or they'll start to plan and create their goals for the upcoming year. I myself will take the time and the opportunity to journal what my plans are or what my goals are for 2026. At the same time, I'll also journal and reflect on the things I'm grateful for in 2025 and the things that I were able to achieve or accomplish this past year. Now, that in and of itself is not necessarily a bad thing. Where it does become an issue or can become an issue for many of us is when we go into this extreme overdrive of I have to accomplish all my goals. And you might even feel like I have to accomplish all my goals in the first month, or you have to do them all perfectly. And if you're not achieving them right away or to the level that you expect, you might go into having no drive, no motivation. And so then you end up just saying, screw it, and you don't even attempt to do them anymore. Okay, so that's the issue. We tend to go from this extreme overdrive to having no drive or no motivation at all. So let's talk about how perfectionists can over-identify with having discipline, productivity, and drive as part of their identity. I know for me, I also believed and felt like it was just part of who I was to be uber disciplined, productive all the time, and ambitious. But the truth is, while maybe some of that might be a part of my personality, a majority of what drives the bus on that is, if I'm being honest, is that it is a protective strategy that I developed at the age of 10. That's the age when I started wearing the mask of people pleasing, performing, and perfection. And so it sounded like this when I was a kid, and then it even carried on well into my adult years. If I just work harder, then everything will be okay. If I stay disciplined and I do all the things I say that I'm going to do, then no one can criticize me. If I stay productive and I get the straight A's, or I do well in sports, or I keep my house a certain way, or whatever the case is, then I'll be worthy. Do any of these ring a bell for you? So here's what happens essentially is that this overdrive becomes protective. Like I said, it's a protective strategy rather than an actual, like, authentic expression of our inner desire. Now, I want to pause for a minute and say this, that a lot of what I share with you on this podcast and many of the episodes are centered around a theme or an idea or an actual struggle that I am grappling with myself. And I am grappling with this right now. I am trying to find that healthy balance for myself between doing the things that I do, in particular my business, as to whether it is coming from this protective place or is it coming from an inner desire? Is it coming from inspiration? And so that's why I'm doing this episode for you today, is because I'm sharing with you how I'm grappling with it and what I have learned so far.
Hey, it's Kim here, interrupting your regularly scheduled podcast episode to let you know about an opportunity to go deeper into this work. I invite you to head over to Amazon.com and pick up your copy of my book, Free to Be: A Pathway to Inner Liberation. If you are looking to unhook from people-pleasing and perfectionistic patterns, if you're looking to have a better way of identifying your patterns and then how you can unhook so you can be free to step outside your comfort zone, free to have more meaningful relationships in your life, free to be your true self without hiding behind a mask any longer. If you desire any of this, then I encourage you to pick up your copy. And if you enjoy my book as much as I loved writing it, please go on over and leave a review on Amazon. You can leave a star review or written review. Now back to your regularly scheduled podcast episode.
Now, let me just say this for the record, that having drive or discipline is not bad in and of itself. It can actually serve us. And there are some really healthy, positive outcomes for having drive and having discipline. For instance, and I know that this is true for me in my own life as well, when you have discipline or drive, you are more likely to have more consistency and more follow through. I know that's true because I have been disciplined with this podcast and I have shown up every freaking week with an episode without fail for over 5.5 years. And when I tell you that I haven't had the outcomes that I expected, one would really expect that I probably would have quit or given up a long time ago. But I have discipline and I have drive to keep going. So consistency and follow through is key. Another one is that by doing, say, the podcast for 5.5 years and staying consistent and following through, it allows me to have more trust in myself. It allows me to build that self-trust and that confidence in knowing that if I stay disciplined, that I can get certain things done. And I can, number 3, achieve some meaningful goals. I had a goal, I wanted to have a podcast. I have a podcast. And it also is teaching me, and it can teach you as well, about developing resilience. That I have seen play out in my own life in the area of my health. I'm trying as best as I can. I'm not perfect at it, but really working hard at staying disciplined and having drive and motivation to eat well and to move my body so that I can have better health. I have a goal and a desire to be in good health and have a healthy body. It's not perfect all the time. There are times I do fall off the wagon and I eat like shit, or I don't exercise as much, but then I always get back on. And so that is the resilience part. That's the perseverance part. And also having drive and discipline can allow you to pursue long-term dreams. And so as I said, there's nothing wrong with having ambition. There is a positive, healthy way, but the issue is why we're driven and what it costs us. So that's what we're going to explore. And the drawbacks to having too much ambition, too much drive, it turns into the perfectionistic, quote unquote, overdrive. And so the overdrive can go from having drive can go from being healthy for us to being harmful. So what does it look like when we're in an unhealthy overdrive? Some of the signs for that would be, and this one is so true for me, is being super rigid with yourself and having no room for flexibility or rest. And this I say all the time on this podcast. If you've been listening to me for a while and you've been following for a while, you've heard me say that we are human beings and not human doings. And then it's okay, Kim, practice what you preach. And it's so hard for me to allow myself to rest. And I just at times have this rigid discipline. Another example could be that if you're someone who is super rigid with your diet, maybe you are trying to do keto, or you're doing like very low carb, and you go to a holiday party and you don't allow yourself any flexibility whatsoever because you have this very rigid black or white type of thinking, that can be harmful for you to have that kind of overdrive. And then if you do have that rigid all or nothing mentality, and then you quote unquote mess up or slip up one time, you might have this constant criticism of yourself. You're always looking for the things that you are doing wrong instead of focusing on the things that you are doing, especially when you're not hitting your goals. And so then you have this like feeling of you're never doing enough. That was that one killed me as I was navigating my younger years. I always felt that I was never doing enough as a daughter, as a friend, as a mom. I just kept feeling like I was somehow missing the mark all the time. And all of this just came from my perfectionistic tendencies. This is what I'm trying to say. So you may also feel like you are super anxious when you're not productive. I talked about that in last week's episode. I talked about restlessness, and then the one before that was about not being productive. So they were similar, but they had some nuances to it. You can go back and listen to those two podcasts if you are a person who feels anxious when you're not being productive. Those are good ones for you to listen to. And then of course, the one that steals our joy all the time is when we compare ourselves to another person's progress. Why is so-and-so doing so much better in her business? Why is so-and-so so good at working out and losing weight? Why is so-and-so good with her podcast, but I'm not? You get the idea. And then the other thing that can show up as a sign that you're in this perfectionistic overdrive is feeling burned out, feeling exhausted, or here's another one, you might feel that you're dependent on this constant need for adrenaline. And if you're feeling any one of those things, if that's showing up for you, there's no doubt then that you are unable to feel joy in the things that you once loved. You just feel numb to life because you're in this constant protective strategy of driving and being ambitious and disciplined. And then most importantly, or finally, you feel disconnected from your intuition and your inner wisdom. And so those are the signs. Those are the signs if you are in an unhealthy place with discipline, drive, perfectionism, productivity. Now, here's the thing. Here's what perfectionists can tend to do. We're either all the way in, constantly driving, pushing ourselves, being overly disciplined, and then when it gets to a point where it's way too much for us and we do get to that place of burnout, exhaustion, and overwhelm, then the pendulum can swing all the way to the other end where you have too little discipline and very little to no drive or motivation. And that's where I am right now and what I'm grappling with currently, because I feel like I'm swinging over to the other side. And I'm talking about this because I think this is something that perfectionists rarely talk about. We don't want to talk about this part of us because I think we could be a little bit embarrassed or we could be ashamed that we are feeling like, I don't know, a bump on the log, let's say. So here are some of the signs that you might be in burnout and overwhelm, or you're not having enough drive, you're lacking motivation. And so then for one, you would have difficulty. You may have difficulty feeling motivated or inspired. And that's where I'm at right now. I'm like, what do I want to do next? What comes next in my business and my purpose work? And I really am not 100% sure, to be honest with you. I keep looking for signs or inspiration, but nothing is there yet. It's also possible that you could have difficulty getting started on tasks, or you might feel guilty for not being productive. We talked about that one. That's a big one. And you might be questioning, what's your purpose? What's the meaning of life? Where's my ambition? And that's, again, a little bit where I am right now. And then consequently, because of that, you might feel empty or disconnected. And that's why it's so uncomfortable for me to just be in this place. It's this in-between place. It's this no man's land, because I know that no part of me wants to be in this unhealthy, perfectionistic, disciplined, overdrive kind of place. I know that I've learned enough now. That's a pattern for me, and it doesn't bring me joy or peace or abundance or freedom. It's not in alignment with the life that I'm creating for myself. But yet, on the other hand, it's okay. So on the other hand is this unmotivated place, lack of inspiration, lack of clarity is not where I want to be either. So it's about how to get that pendulum to swing back to the middle and find that middle ground. And basically, I truly know, my soul knows that where I am right now is in a place of this normal recalibration, if you will. Even though it feels like I'm being lazy because I'm not doing, quote, doing anything. And so it feels like I'm being lazy, but it actually is just a recalibration period. And my nervous system is rewiring itself and it's recovering from all the years of me just pushing and driving myself to do and be perfect. So one of the things that I'm starting to do for myself, and you can do this for yourself as well, is to ask a key question. When you are reflecting on your drive or ambition, you can ask yourself, is my drive coming from a place of fear, lack, and scarcity, or is it coming from desire? Because here's the thing, if your drive is coming from fear, lack, or scarcity, or anxiety, you are inevitably going to go to this place of wanting or needing to control. So I remember learning a long time ago from Dr. Shafali that she would say anytime that we are in lack, scarcity, or anxiety, we go into control. That's what we want to do when we are feeling fearful or anxious. We want to control. We need to feel like we have some sense of control. And that's only an illusion anyway, because we have control over nothing. And if that's the case, if your drive or discipline is rooted in fear, it's going to look like this or sound like this. Quote, I have to, or I should, or I can't rest yet. Or finally, I need to prove myself. All of those, if you're thinking those thoughts, you are coming from a place of fear, lack, and scarcity. If your drive is more rooted in desire, then it will look or sound like this. I want to. This feels exciting. This is aligned with who I'm becoming, or I feel pulled toward this rather than pushing or forcing something to happen. And that I can tell you, I fully experienced that when I wrote my book, Free to Be, A Pathway to Inner Liberation, just over a year ago. I knew for certainty that I was being pulled to do it. And how did I know I was being pulled? Because I resisted. I'm like, I'm not writing a book. I'm not writing a book. I'm not an author. And I came up with so many excuses or resistance to writing a book, but I just kept feeling this pull. It was like my soul was calling me to write that book. And so I did. And then literally the book was birthed in 9 months, just like birthing a child. It was just, what is the word? Serendipitous, if you will. So, and I think that's what I'm looking for right now in terms of my business and my purpose work, is that I really want to be in this place of alignment that when I create an episode or I create a social media post or I create a program or anything else, that as best as I can, I'm in alignment with desire and excitement and creativity and passion, and not from this place of I have to or I should. And that's why, like, this episode, I promise you that this episode that I'm creating right now is 100% from desire. Like, I want to create this episode because, number one, it's just bubbling to the surface for me. And because it is something I am grappling with in real time, and I feel like it can be super helpful for you to witness what I'm going through, but also to share in the things that I'm learning and that are helping me. So I'm sharing it with you. So there's no doubt that this episode has come up and through me. I'm not sitting here, oh, what am I going to record today? I have to get an episode out. I should do ... It's not coming from that energy. But beyond recording episodes, I don't really know. If I'm honest, I'm trying to just let it come through me, but I really feel the urge and the need to have to come up with something because I should be doing more than I am. See, I should be. Okay, so then finally, how do we strike this balance? I've just been talking about it, number one. And what I just shared with you in my little story there is how, I have to first and foremost be aware of my patterns. I have to be aware of when I'm coming from desire versus fear. So it's one, recognize the pattern. That's the first step of my 5-step power pathway. The second thing I have to do is notice that it's a pattern. After I notice that it's a pattern, I have to realize that I'm the only one who can do anything about it. I have to own it. And I'm the one who has to stop hustling or under functioning. So I have to own that. And then it really is important for me to take this third step, which is the willingness to feel in order to heal. If I'm coming from a place of fear, lack, and scarcity, and I want to go into controlling, what is the fear? What's the fear about? What's the unmet need? And then just going underneath to see what part of me has an unmet need. And then I can embrace that part of me. I can give that part of me what she needs. And I can recognize that it's my perfectionistic Paula. If you were with me a few episodes back, if not, you can go back and check out that episode as well, where I talk about my perfectionistic Paula. I named her, gave that persona, that part of me, a name, and I can just really go to the place of embracing perfectionistic Paula and realizing how exhausted and tired she must be from having to drive all the time and be so super disciplined and overfunction. She really is exhausted. And then how afraid she is that if she doesn't keep doing it, like if she isn't always being the perfectionistic Paula, that she might just go to being nothing and doing nothing and then feeling completely unworthy. So it's super important for me to integrate her, to acknowledge her existence and give her what she needs. And then finally, I can take radical responsibility, which is the last step of the power pathway, and I can choose to be more aligned in my actions rather than being fear-based. So what are some other practical tools that you can use to try to find more balance with your motivation? So what I came up with after doing a little bit of research myself is that you can do the 80% rule. So what that just means is when you are working on something, let's say today I'm recording this episode, I'm creating some social media posts, and then I have a bunch of other errands to do or bills to pay, other housekeeping type of things. And what I can notice is when I'm getting at 80% of my energy, and I'm almost there, I'm almost at, I might even be tipping over the 80% a little bit. But when I recognize that I'm okay, I have used up 80% of my energy for all of these things, then I can just pause and stop and then leave some room in my life. And you can do the same for more joy, and you can more fun. And then that allows your intuition to come more online if you're allowing more room for your life. Maybe it's just listening to music. Maybe it's taking a walk. Maybe it's seeing a friend or whatever. We have to leave room for joy in order to not get into that place of super over functioning. Another step that you can take is to just really check in with yourself before you go into action. And you can ask yourself 2 simple questions and say, does this feel expansive, or does it feel contracted or constrictive? And then you can ask yourself, am I doing this for me, or am I doing it for approval? Another thing that you can ask yourself, or that you can do, is to have, instead of having very black and white, very rigid banks to your river, you can ask yourself, how can I create a more supportive rhythm that can honor both putting in effort and rest? So it's like having this balance, this rhythm. Okay, I'm going to effort for a while. I'm going to do a little bit, and then I'm going to rest. I'm going to effort, and then I'm going to rest. Now, mind you, I understand that this may be more challenging if you have young kids, if you are working a full-time job. It may be more difficult for you to incorporate rest when you are either taking care of little kids or you're at a job 9 to 5. And so maybe at that point, you can't like take, if you're at work, you probably can't take an hour to rest every couple of hours, but you could just try to do like a mini pause or a mini break, or just getting up and trying to move a little bit more. And definitely when you're done with work, or find some time, even if it's just a little bit. I know I can remember when my kids were little and they just needed me a lot, and it was really hard for me to balance taking care of them and resting. And I will say this, when they were little, I didn't have the tools that I have today. I didn't have the awareness that I have today. And that's why it's so important for me as well to keep this podcast going and to create it, because even though you may not be able to take the tools that I'm sharing with you and implement them all, or implement them perfectly, I'm still planting a seed, right? I'm still planting a seed. And especially if you're like in your 20s, if you're from 22 to 30 and you're hearing this message, number one, like, kudos to you for listening. And thank you for listening this far into the episode already. But it's so crucial that you're hearing the message now, and that you can start to be more aware and make more mindful choices, so that, you know, when you are having a family and raising a family, you see where you can balance more effort and more rest. So how do we integrate? How do we integrate our intuition and balance with our ambition? How do we integrate intuition and balance into our ambition? And here's what I want to say in terms of intuition. Whenever our intuition is present, and again, this is something that I'm learning. It's a learning curve for me, but it is starting to show up more and more in my life. And when that intuition is present, there definitely is this feeling or sense of more ease, even if I'm putting in effort. It's just more easeful, and there's more flow. And as I said earlier, I feel, or you will feel more of a pull toward something rather than forcing it, and you're not hustling for it. And you also, when your intuition is present, trust the timing. And that's the one where I'm still grappling and I'm like, I want it done now. I'm not willing to trust the timing of it all. But it is when I can take a deep breath and I can pause and take a step back, I'm like, okay, yeah, I can see that maybe it is all about timing. And then I just allow for things to unfold naturally, and I just follow the breadcrumbs. Finally, I will say this as I round out this episode, is that there is this ebb and flow of motivation, and it is completely normal that sometimes you may feel way more motivated than others, and sometimes you feel under motivated. And it is also super important just to emphasize and highlight for you that rest and joy and spaciousness really do amplify creativity and passion. They don't diminish it. They don't take away. It's so important. We think that we don't have time, we don't have room for rest and for joy and for spaciousness. And so we don't include it. But the truth is, then we don't have the opportunity to be more creative or more passionate. And so I just want to say that. And then also, I invite you to explore your own patterns around discipline, ambition, and motivation, and to go through that 5-step power pathway. As I said, notice your pattern. Where can you own it? What do you have to feel in order to heal? What do you have to embrace? What parts of you do you have to embrace and integrate? And then what radical responsibility can you take? And then I'll just end by saying this quote, that your worth is not measured by what you produce. True success is alignment. It's not exhaustion. And I'm going to keep that in the forefront of my mind as best as I can, because I need that reminder as much as I'm giving it to you. So I hope that this was helpful. And if you enjoyed this episode, number one, feel free to share with me and let me know in the comments section, or you can leave a review if you're on your favorite audio platform. And if you feel like this would be helpful for someone, that please pay it forward and share with somebody that could benefit from this episode. And then finally, if you are in your 20s and you are really looking for more ways to receive support and community with other like-minded young women who are going through similar struggles, then I invite you to reach out to me. You can email me and let me know that you might be interested in joining my community for young women. That is called Real and Unfiltered. We meet every week and we just show up and support each other through things like feeling exhausted, burned out, overwhelmed, too driven, too much ambition, and how they can have more joy, peace, and freedom in their lives. Okay, everybody, I hope that you have a wonderful Christmas if you are celebrating.
Hey, Kim Gross here. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Masks Off for People Pleasers and Perfectionists. I invite you to hop on over to my website, kimgrosscoaching.com. Right there on the front page, there's a quiz for people pleasers and perfectionists. You can find out if you have tendencies. You can also get into my newsletter where you will be given valuable content every week on different topics I share here in the podcast. And if you really did enjoy this episode, if you found it helpful, if you found it valuable, please go to, if you're on YouTube, go and subscribe. If you're listening on your favorite podcast platform, then I invite you to leave a review. You can even do a star review. It doesn't have to be a written review. If you know of someone who can benefit from this podcast or this particular episode, please share it with them. I'll see you next time.